Hi, I'm Rainbow Sparkle and I'm reading the book The Enchanted Wood by Enid Blyton, and this is chapter 2, The First Visit to the Wood. The three children had no chance to visit the Enchanted Wood until the next week because they had to help Mother and Father all they could. There was a garden to get tidy, curtains to sew for the house, and a great deal of cleaning to be done. Sometimes Joe was free and could have gone by himself, but sometimes the girls were sent out for a walk, but Joe was busy, so none of them wanted to go without each other, so they had to wait. And then, at last, their chance came. "You can take your tea out to play," said Mother. "You've worked well, and all of you, and you deserve to go out and have a picnic. I'll cut you up some sandwiches and you can take a bottle of milk." "We'll go into the wood," whispered Bessie to the others, and with the excited faces and beating hearts, they helped their mother to pack their tea into a big basket, and they set off. There was a small gate at the bottom of their back garden that led into the overgrown lane running by the wood. They unlatched the gate and stood in the lane. They could see the trees in the wood and hear them talking their strange tree talk. "Wish, wish, wish, wish." "I feel as if there are adventures are about," said Joe. "Come on, over the ditch we go and into the Enchanted Wood." One by one, the children jumped over the narrow pitch. They stood beneath the trees and peered about. Small freckles of sunshine lay here and there on the ground, but not very many, for the trees were so thick. It was dim and green there, and a small bird nearby sang a queer little song, over and over again. "It really is magic," said Fanny. "I can feel magic about somewhere. Can't you, Bessie? Can't you, Joe?" "Yes," said the others, and their eyes shone with excitement. "Come on," and they all went down a little green path that looked as if it had been made for rabbits. It was so small and narrow. "Don't let's go too far," said Joe. "We had better wait till we know the paths a bit before we go too deep into the wood. Look about for a good place to sit down and have our sandwiches, girls." "I can see some wild strawberries," cried Bessie, and she knelt down and pressed back some pretty leaves, showing the deep red strawberries below. "Let's pick some and have them for our tea too," said Fanny. So they picked hard, and soon they had enough to make a fine meal of strawberries. "Let's sit down under the oak tree over there," said Joe. "It's all soft moss beneath. It would be like sitting on a green velvet cushion." So they sat down and undid their sandwiches. Soon they were munching away happily, listening to the dark green leaves overhead saying "wisha wisha" all the time. And it was whilst they were in the middle of their tea that they saw a very peculiar thing. Fanny noticed it first. Not far off was a clear piece of soft grass. As Fanny looked at it, she noticed bumps appearing on it. She stared at it in surprise. The bumps grew. The earth rose and broke in about 6 places. "Look," said Fanny, pointing at the piece of grass. "What's happening over there?" All three watched in silence, and then they saw what it was. 6 big toadstools were growing quickly up from the ground, pushing their way up and rising up steadily. "I've never seen that before," said Joe in astonishment. "Shh," said Bessie. "Don't make a noise. I can hear footsteps." The others listened. Sure enough, they heard the sound of pattering feet and little high voices. "Let's get quick behind that bush," said Bessie. "Whoever it is that is coming will be frightened if they see us. There's magic happening here and we want to see it. They scrambled up and crept quietly behind the thick bush, taking their basket with them. They hid it just in time, for even as Bessie settled down and parted the leaves of the bush to peep through, there came a troop of small men with long beards, almost reaching down to the ground. "Brownies," whispered Joe. The brownies went into the toadstool and sat down on them. They were holding a meeting. One of them had a bag with him, and as he put it down behind the toadstool, the children could hear what was being said. But they heard the sound of chattering voices and only caught one or two words. Suddenly, Joe nudged Bessie and Fanny. He had seen something else. The girls saw it too. An ugly, gnome-like fellow was creeping up silently behind the meeting on the toadstools. None of the brownies saw him or heard him. "He's after that bag," whispered Joe. And so he was. He reached out a long arm. His bony fingers closed up on the bag, and he began to pull it away under the bush. Joe jumped up. He was not going to watch people being robbed without saying something, so he shouted loudly, "Stop, thief! Look at that gnome behind you!" In the fright, the brownies all leapt up. The gnome jumped to his feet and sped off with the bag. The brownies stared at him in dismay. Not one of them followed him. The robber ran towards the children's bush. He didn't know they were there. As quick as lightning, Joe put out his foot and tripped up the running gnome. Down he went, crash! The bag flew from his hand, and Bessie picked it up and threw it to the astonished brownies, who were still standing by the toadstools. Joe tried to grab the gnome, but he was up and off like a bird. The children tore after him. In between the trees they went, dodging here and there, and at last they saw the gnome leap up to low branches of a great tree and pull himself into the leaves. The children sank down at the bottom out of breath. We could have got him," said Joe. "He can't get down without being caught." "Here are the brownies coming," said Bessie, wiping off her hot forehead. The little bearded men ran up and bowed. "You were very good to us," said the biggest one. "Thank you for saving our bag. We had valuable papers in there." "We've got the gnome for you," said Joe as he pointed up the tree. "He went up there. If you surround the tree and wait, you'll be able to catch him when he comes down." But the brownies would not come too near the tree. They looked half frightened of it. "He will not come down until he wants to," said the biggest brownie. "That is the oldest and most magic tree in the world. It is the Faraway Tree." "The Faraway Tree," said Bessie in wonder. "What a strange name. Why do you call it that?" "It's a strange tree," said another brownie. "The top of it reaches the faraway places in a way that we don't understand. Sometimes its top branches may be in a witchland with lovely countries, sometimes in peculiar places that no one has ever heard of. We never climb it because we never know what's going to be at the top." "How very strange," said the children. "The gnome has got into whatever place there is at the top of the tree today. He may live there for months and never come down again. It's no good waiting for him. It's certainly no good going after him. His name is Creepy, because he is forever creeping about quietly." The children looked up into the leafy fluffy branches of the tree. They felt tremendously excited. The faraway tree in the Enchanted Wood. Oh, what magic there seemed to be in just even their names. If only they could climb up. "You must never do that," said the brownies at once. "It's dangerous." "We must go now, but we do thank you for your help. If ever you want us to help you, just come into the Enchanted Wood and whistle 7 times under the oak tree, near where the toadstools are." "Thank you," said the children, and stared after the 6 small brownies as they all ran off between the trees. Joe thought it was time to go home, so they followed the little men down the narrow green path until they all came to the part of the wood they knew. They picked up their basket and went home, all of them thinking the same thought. "We must go up the faraway tree and see what is at